is Rob Talbot for Boxing Social. I'm delighted to be joined once again by Shane McGUIGAN. We're here today at the Luke Campbell announcement. You've got yourself a new fighter, Shane.
Yep, got a new fighter with, teamed up with Luke, Olympic gold medalist, huge talent, fallen short at their world level, but yeah, now it's he's teamed up with myself and he's relocating to London. Don't know if it beats Miami or not. I think I'd choose Miami, but close to his family, a lot of positives for him, and great guy. I feel like we're already really, connected and working well together. So it's good.
Yeah, I think he said to me that Hull and London are quite different, let alone Miami. So I think he might take a little bit of adjustment, but all good. Tell me a little bit about how it came to pass. Not every day an Olympic gold medalist rings you up, I'm sure.
No, so he's got the same people that look after him commercially as George. So they gave me a call, and I said, yeah, I'd be interested. Get a lot of calls from a lot of fighters at certain times of their career and life, and sometimes they don't show up, and sometimes they do. Sometimes we don't work together, like we work well together, and sometimes we do. And I feel like with Luke, straight away, very nice guy, very easy to work with, really respectful, and also feels like he's got a lot to learn, and that's someone I want to be working with. Physically, he's got a lot to bring up. He's very light for lightweight, as it were. He spends a lot of his time in training camp, at too light of a weight. He's got a lot to. Look at his stature. I feel like I can physically make him a bigger specimen for the weight, and obviously keeping his speed, keeping his technique. Punches really hard, naturally heavy-handed. I just need to get him strong now, be able to feel a little bit more comfortable on the inside, and set his feet. So we'll see. I think he's got all the attributes, and I'm really excited about starting the journey.
Now, we all know about Luke's sort of technical ability. Don't hand out Olympic gold medalists. Obviously, he's had without cracking sort of the world level as a pro, he has had still a pretty established professional career. One thing that you've told me in the past, and one thing I know that's very important to you with your stable, is how they fit in, sort of the makeup of the person, not just the fighter. Tell me a little bit about how you see Luke fitting in. Was it something that sort of struck you straight away? I know you have like a family bond with your fighters in the gym. How important is that?
Well, as I said before, great guy. He's turning 31 soon, so he'd be the year above me in school, which is quite funny. But him and George were on the England team together from when they were kids. I've met him over the years numerous amounts of times, and always really got on with him. It just has worked out now that he's sort of knocked on the door at the sort of crossroads stage of his career now, and he's been a little bit forgotten about. So I want to get him back relevant. He's now I want him to have all his fights in the UK. Build up his fan base again in meaningful fights, not being put on undercards, and make him a priority. And I feel like he'll get that working with myself. We're kind of the outsiders a little bit in boxing. We do it a little bit our own way as the bit of the Mavericks, but he'll fit in. He's him and George get on really well. Him and Taylor have been on the GB camps together. We went to Olympics together. Little Lee has been in the gym with him. Chantel knows him from the GB setup. CBS would get on with anyone, and myself, we gel really well. So it's just about sort of creating that bond now over the next sort of 6 months, and making sure that he can keep progressing. We're scheduled to box twice before the year's out, so that'd be great. I'll have this fight, this next one, have a week's holiday, and then straight back into the camp, and straight back in learning again. And there's a lot of fighters that at his stage of their career feel like they know it all, but same thing with George. George had been at such a top level, but come to me and was still hungry to learn, still felt like he had a lot to improve on. And look at him now. He was at rock bottom after he lost to Badou Jack, didn't even know if he wanted to box again. Going into the finals of the WBSS, and that comes from a positive mindset, being around positive people, being in a happy place. And Luke doesn't. He's not going to be. He's not coming off as big of a sort of career loss, but he still hasn't achieved what he wants to. And being in the right gym around winners, with the right mindset, I feel like it will just automatically bring him up. And then physically, I think we can work on him a lot as well, get him a lot stronger, and then just going into fights with tactical game plans. I don't know how many times he's gone in with game plans. I know with the Mende fight, his last fight with Mende, it was sort of sprung on him 2 or 3 weeks out, and he had to just adapt. Whereas, I don't want to do that. With all my fighters, we have good full training camps. We're not opponents. We're not last minute guys that just jump in. And that's for me is making sure that that they know that that they value themselves, and that's something that he's going to now take for the rest of his career, because he's an Olympic gold medalist and he's got a huge fan base in Hull, and he needs to value himself, and he will once he starts winning, and other people will jump on the bandwagon. But that's great, as long as he stays true to himself and maximises himself, then this is a short career. The rest of his career now is just meaningful fights, no undercards, big fights, and go out there and make hay whilst the sun shines, as it were.
You mentioned that Luke has come to you at somewhat of a career crossroads. His unsuccessful challenge against Jorge Linares, while you weren't involved with him at the time, I mean, I'm sure even before taking Luke on, you did watch that fight. What did you make of his performance?
It's a very similar performance to George against Badu. It was like, he started, he got dropped in a second, got up, it was a world title fight, so he just felt like he had to go and force it, and he did well. Linares is a very good counter puncher, lazy, so he sort of took the fight to him quite a bit. But he's just he's pouring with a lot of his shots early on, and he's looking for too many combinations early, and you just need to just get on the basics, get your jab going, extend the jab, try and land your backhand, chest height. As soon as you start doing that, then you can once you've got to build on every round. You don't just go out there and show all your tricks and just go, okay, I can throw this one, draw in the right hook or whatever. It's just going in there with the right game plan, making sure that you're being patient, and it was a very good performance from him, especially getting up off the canvas, because it was a heavy shot that dropped him against an elite. He's an elite fighter, Linares. He dropped Lomachenko. He's put up a great performance. He's a serious skilled operator, 3-year world champion. So it's not it was no. You can't look at that and go, oh, he's not world class. It was a majority decision or a split decision. So he showed that he can mix at that level, but we want to win those fights. And 6 months' time, 8 months' time, he'll be winning those massive fights. Trust me.
Now, you mentioned the credit that Luke received from a narrow loss to Jorge Linares. Different to his first loss to Ivan Mendy, where he went in as a favourite. After the Ivan Mendy loss, he went and joined up with Jorge Rubio. How different is the fighter that you've got now compared to the fighter that lost to Ivan Mendy?
I think Rubio done a great job with him. He worked on his attributes well, but still, look at Luke's record. He's heavy-handed, very heavy-handed. He was with guys like that. You don't want to get him to try and punch too much, because it exhausts them. With a naturally heavy-handed person, you want to punch him with 3 punches max per combination, then take a step out or a slip, and then go for another 2 or 3. But he was trying to throw too many shots, and that's just something that I've got to just drill back out of him a little bit. But in terms of his footwork, he's had that his whole career. He's been a very skilled fighter. He picks things up like that real quick. It's just about getting him to understand when he needs to use certain tricks, certain shots, and that's going to take time. But as I said to the press guys over there, we're straight into a title fight. Well, we're straight into a meaningful fight, and to a guy that he's been beaten by before as well. So with George, it was like we could build momentum, but it's not necessarily a bad thing, because we can get our teeth stuck straight into it. And he's had a long time to prepare, and he'll be in the best condition of his life. I know that for sure. the first fight, he's got sprung on him. He had a virus. He just didn't look at the races. But a fully fit Luke Campbell versus a fully fit Yvonne Mendes, who's also, I feel like, has improved a little bit since that as well. But Luke beats him every day of the week.
From a technical point of view, certainly from what I can see, I'm far from a boxing savant. But Jorge Rubio and yourself, you strike me as different trainers. Obviously, every trainer is different. What do you feel that you're going to be able to build on, as opposed to what Jorge Rubio did from a technical point of view? I know you've mentioned sort of throwing fewer shots and sitting down. Sort of, it's kind of like the classic Cuban style compared to what you do now, which is very different. Just talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, Jorge sort of gets people to punch at the target. I get people to punch through the target. But I don't want to take that necessarily away from him. It's just setting the shots up correctly. But, you just got to be able to merge the two. I mean, I designed a style with a guy that was a super bantamweight. Then I started working with super middleweights. Then I started working with a heavyweight, and then brought it down to, it's just about making sure. I feel like now, being in the game, 8.5, 9 years as a coach, I feel like I can work with what talent I'm given and maximise them. And like one thing that Luke really needs to work on is his jab. His jab is massively under par because he's got such a strong backhand that he's looking for it all the time. And it's just what I feel like I'm going to work well with is making him feel a little bit more comfortable in close, because in close he panics a little bit. You can see with his fights, he tenses up a little bit, but there's no need to, because he can fight in there. He just needs to learn how to just feel a bit more comfortable in there, and that just comes with physically getting stronger, and just sort of not trying to fight fire with fire on the inside. If someone hits you 3 shots, don't try and hit them 3 back. Hit them 1 meaningful shot back. Again, George against Cox, just catch fire up the middle. 1 or 2 meaningful shots like that, and then just grab, smother, work your way out again. And that's just going to take time. But I feel like with good quality sparring, we'll bring a few people in for this one. He'll get there, for sure.
Now, you mentioned the sparring. It's not something I've actually asked you about. I know that some trainers don't like to match their fighters against each other or do spars with each other. You have Josh Taylor, who is the weight above Luke Campbell. Will you be using them as sparring partners for each other?
Maybe, but not really. I don't think, definitely not for the next 2 fights. No, I mean, if the time comes, then they'll work together. But I got asked there again if Luke moves up to light welter, or what would be the case. I said, well, hopefully at that stage Taylor will be off to welterweight. So, we're not gonna. I'm not gonna allow any sort of killing spars in the gym. It's just not the way I work. I'll just take gloves off, take gum shields out, and give them a few days of a ban from the gym. So no, they'll work together. It'll probably be a bit more technical spars. I try and get sparring to replicate the fight as much as possible. And the reason we pay our sparring partners is so they come in and they just put a full face head guard on if you feel vulnerable against our fighters, and just we're paying you for good money to come and spar us and give us your best work, and it's just an open spar. So. And I don't really want that to be going on in-house. Although Chris is sparring George, completely different weight categories, and and Chris is at a completely different level than stage of his career than George. So he'll play the game.
Okay, and just finally, something I've spoken to you about in the past is having your George Groves in the past, David Hay, Carl Frampton. What's it going to be like now for the likes of Lee McGregor, for the likes of Chris Billham-Smith? Now you've got an Olympic gold medalist joining the camp. How beneficial is that to them at this stage of their career?
Hugely. I mean, they're going to learn a lot off Luke, because he does some really. I mean, he's got some great moves, got some great skill set to him, great footwork, different fighter to George. So for the young guys coming up, they've got so many different styles to look at now. They've got Taylor that can work that works really well in the pocket. They've got George, who's got a fantastic jab. They've got Luke, that he's got great timing. So yeah, it's just going to be good for the young lads coming through to sort of build up and also give them confidence that these people are in the gym. So yeah, it's going to be great for young Lee, but he wants to be at that title level soon. So hopefully then we'll get someone else in to kind of come off underneath him and off the back of them.
Okay, well, Shane McGUIGAN, always a pleasure catching up with you. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social. I'll see you next week at McGUIGAN's gym.
Yeah, let's do it. Big long one next week.
Great, thanks. Cheers, mate.